Goda, and welcome to United by Rice, the podcast. And my co-host is Ben Lee, as always. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing well. It's good
Yeah,
to see you again.
yeah, good to see you.
And
How's life?
life is good. I tell you, like doing this podcast has been a lot of fun. And as I think I shared before, the uptake, the interest in it, the amount of guests that we're lining up has really just amazed me. We went into this not knowing what that would look like, right? And so it is very exciting, but all that said, we want this to be sustainable. So everything that you can do, listeners, like, follow, share, please do it,
Yes,
right?
please.
And
Okay, well, I think we'll have an active Patreon just for shits and giggles.
yeah, that's
Maybe.
right. That's
Yeah, and we're not under a production company. We're just, like we said in episode 1, Ben and I just met during award season, and then we just kept seeing each other over and over again.
that's
So,
right.
and
That's
then
right.
Ben was like, I just have this idea. You want to do it? So but we enjoy doing it, so far.
Yeah, and again,
Sorry.
and even if you don't like us, like I said, we have good guests coming. So,
Yes, that's
I
very
think,
true. If you don't like us,
yeah,
you could just skip to probably minute 28.
that's right.
I
That's right.
feel like that's what people have been doing now.
I think we'll talk about some of the upcoming guests in a minute, but you asked how I've been. I've been busy. As you know, I was down in LA recently attending this event called the Committee of 100. And at that event, they had a Joy Luck Club reunion of the daughters.
Mm,
So Ming Na Wen, Lauren Tom, Rosalind Chow, and Tamlin Tamita. You and I have
yes.
talked, and I have a crush on a couple of these ladies.
Yes.
And so I wrote an article, posted it, and I got a like from Tamlin and Lauren Tom. And I'm still at a stage that when I get a like from someone with a blue, verified
Uh,
thing, it
yeah.
gets me very excited. So, this is something that, definitely gives me a lot of joy during the week. And then
Yeah.
tomorrow
Yes.
night, so it's as we're filming, it's Wednesday, May 7th. Tomorrow night, the San Francisco, what used to be known as the Asian Film Festival, is now called CamFest, the
Okay.
Chinese
Yeah.
American.
Hmm.
And so I'll be going to the opening night tomorrow and watch a couple of films during the rest of
What's
the
their
weekend.
opening? What's Cam's opening?
I wish I'd prepared for that question. Uh, I will
No, you can
look it
Google it.
up.
You can Google it really
Yeah,
quick.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you could do that while I chat about my week. Oh, speaking of film festivals, right around this time is when Visual Communications, Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival down in LA, and then there's CAM, and then we have SADAF, San Diego Asian Film Festival. Generally out here in California, these three festivals coordinate between ourselves and make sure we don't overlap. So I helped out on Thursday. I was helping with the red carpet all night, so I was just making
Didn't see it.
sure
Yeah.
all our filmmakers, got their photos done. So that festival is closing out tonight with Mongrels, and then from 10 p.m. is the closing night party. But I've
Got it.
had weird allergy issues, so I've been sitting it out. But it
Yeah, you
sounds
missed a
fun.
lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you filled in the gap there, the opening night film is Third Act
Oh,
by Tadashi. Yeah, Tadashi Nakamura.
literally the film I missed. So yeah,
Okay.
Saturday with Tad's film. I know Tad as well. Um, yeah, I was supposed to help out with Tad's show. I heard it was a great. My friend was like, "It's like if you're all about crying, that's a good documentary." I'm like, thanks.
Well, yeah. So Parkinson's is obviously a big part of the film, right? And
Actually,
so,
I like to go into anything not knowing anything.
oh, okay.
So my only thing I know. Well, I mean, I've seen Taz's father around, so like,
Okay.
and it's he's elderly. Like that's not a surprise. But yeah, all I know is just was it Tad's a second generation documentarian, and then he turned the camera around on his father, who he like learned from. So that's kind of all I know.
Yeah.
And
Well, and I
especially,
just
yeah,
spoiled it, right? His dad has Parkinson's, and so
it's not a huge
clearly,
spoil though. Yeah.
yeah, so clearly, no, that's in the synopsis, but clearly when you talk about like emotional, I'm sure it's a tearjerker. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was completely sold out on Saturday. So they had an overflow screening the next day on Sunday. Oh, yeah. That's gonna be. Yeah. And so that premiered at Sundance, actually at the same time as Wedding Banquet at Sundance this year. There was actually a lot of my friends were up at Sundance this year. It
Mm,
was a very like good Sundance for API, I think.
yeah, yes, for sure. And I think so. Our guests today are a couple folks that come from the independent film world as well. So Gillian McKercher, who's the writer and director of a film called Lucky Star, and then one of her actors in the film Connie Miu. And I do think it's a good moment for us to talk about the podcast, right? Because this, in many ways, I know we had Lee Jung Jae episode one, and we had Bobo Lay the second episode, and we will always try to feature actors in current films and television shows. But I think at our heart, one of the reasons we really wanted to do this podcast was to give a voice and give more opportunities for a lot of the up and coming and independent filmmakers and talent to talk about their projects, right? Whether it's film, television, books, etc. And so
Absolutely.
it speaks a lot to the passion that we have. So it's Asian Heritage Month, not surprising why we have all the film festivals going on. So definitely go out and support these films.
Yep, definitely, definitely. Yeah. So Lucky Star, it hasn't hit the airwaves in the US yet, but it's a week from today. Is that right?
Yes,
13th?
May 13th. So
Yeah,
assuming our podcast is up before then, you should have it streaming on, I understand most of the
the major platforms.
VOD, yeah,
Yeah.
the VOD platforms May 13th. And then right now it's having a cinema run. So if you happen to be in Canada, it's having its cinematic run in Canada right now.
Yes. Yeah, I enjoy Lucky Star. Cinematically speaking, I kind of knew right away it was Canada. It is set in winter, but I guess just those Canadian winters give off a different vibe. But
Sure.
yeah, right off the bat, it's um, I really like the cinematographer's choices and the director as well with their style and approach, and that was part of the discussion too of how it was a discovery. Actually, that was one of the key words that I'm going to take away from our interview we had with Gillian, the director, was the discovery. And you can kind of see that and kind of right off the bat. But yeah, it's so different. I mean, I don't want to say like Asians gone bad, but
Yeah. Well, yeah. So maybe if I can give a mini synopsis.
yes.
So Gillian McKercher, who's the filmmaker here, she herself is Canadian, Asian Canadian, and in fact, most of the cast. So Connie, who is part of our interview, and then Olivia Chang, who will actually join us later this month for one of our episodes, and you may know her, people may know her from Warrior, as well as Marco Polo. So Lucky is actually the name of the dad or husband of the film, and the film starts with a financial crisis that the family's having, like some tax stuff that pops up, where you know this family who's not all that well to do to begin with, they need to come up with some money basically to pay to the government for a tax audit. And Lucky, um, is always kind of grinding and figuring out ways to make some money on the side. His history is as a gambler, right? And he's tried to put that aside in his life. He's tried to move on and lead a more normal lifestyle. But as many Americans and I'm sure Canadians are feeling these days, it's tough, right? And so he kind of gets pulled back into his old ways, and really the story unfolds as a, really a family
Yeah.
drama. But I think
Yeah.
to the point you're making, what I liked about the film is you're used to seeing, I think in general, like, first or second generation married Asian couples today in film tend to be older. They tend to be like the classic immigrant story, work
Right.
hard so that they could set up things for their children. They, restaurant owner, like there's like some tropes that we see all the time. And they're not that, right? Like, you noted in the interview,
Yeah.
Terry Chen, the actor who plays Lucky, like tatted up.
I love
They
that.
reference, yeah, they reference that
I
they
love
kind of
that.
met while they were partying, all that type of stuff. So it's a very different story,
Yeah. And
right?
I guess I could even correct myself being like Asian's gone bad, but it is talking with Connie, it is an examination about addiction. Um and also the fact that like addiction comes in different forms too. Like yes, gambling addiction we're very aware. We see signs all around and stuff like that, but um the like it could be addiction to relationships, emotions. It could, the non-materialistic things. And yeah, and you really just the choices and consequences. I liked that Gillian's script like stood like very realistically grounded. Yeah, Gillian did not choose to put a bow on it and be like, happily ever after. It was still grounded in the reality that there are consequences. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think to that point, right, we won't spoil the ending, but you would typically see, so, here you've got a husband who's gambling again. That story's usually going to end in two ways, right? Like
Right.
they divorce and, things never resolve. Or the opposite, like,
It's
happy
forgiveness.
ending, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it doesn't end that way. It's kind of something different. And whether it's an Asian film or just frankly any like family drama,
yeah,
it's a different approach.
yeah, yeah. So I think that was interesting. What else? Yeah, and so in the film, Connie plays the eldest daughter. Was it she's 22, 23 in the film?
Maybe.
Ish.
Yeah, she's definitely
She's drinking
she's
age.
working, she's post
Yeah,
college. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And just yeah, she did a really great job portraying that awkward, yeah, like child of an addict. Basically, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
just yeah, as a child of that, like how do you deal with it? And I really appreciated Connie's just yeah, accessibility with those circumstances. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we should talk about Connie for a moment because when I wrote my review on this film back when it premiered at the Santa Barbara Film Festival in February, my reaction was that she was the star of the film, right? Like Olivia is always great, so this isn't a knock on her or Terry Chen who plays Lucky, but she has to be the adult of the relationship in many ways, right? And there are some scenes that will make you cringe when you're watching in terms of how she has to respond to her dad's kind of dip
Right.
into gambling again. And she's fantastic. But she was also in the movie Priscilla, directed by Sofia Coppola, right? And one of the kind of friends of Priscilla. So she's certainly getting noticed, and couldn't be happier for her and where her career goes. But I thought she was amazing in this film.
Yeah, it was yeah super interesting. So like Jillian really got that family dynamics down, and I'm like, I guess we could have really talked to them individually for like another good half an
We could
hour.
have. We'll have them. We'll have to have them back on, and they both have more projects that they're working on.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they'll want to talk about other things in the future. Everyone, listen to the interview that follows this because Jillian talks about the inspiration of the story, and it does come from her own personal life, and it's a
Yeah.
pretty fascinating story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Um, I think we could also take a minute. So as we've noted, this is a Asian Canadian story, right? Jillian's
Mm.
from Canada and
Yeah.
really is hitting the Asian or in Canada. But in the news the last few days, you and I were talking about this earlier. Trump, our good friend,
Right, the
you know,
Hollywood
another
tariffs.
another executive order around 100% tariff for all
Yeah.
films
Yes.
made outside of the U.S.
Yes.
And I don't even know what
So,
that means, right? But what was your reaction when you heard that?
yeah, well, just to back up a little bit, apparently it was John Voight who suggested
Yes.
it to Trump in the first place. And I'm like, dude, what do you know about anything?
Yeah, because of
But
course,
anyway,
if you wanted to consult someone on
it would be John Voight.
policy, yeah, of course,
And then I guess now, the media has just kind of put their cameras on John Voight, and I guess he's gonna keep spouting out whatever he wants to. But yeah, it's very vague. Like, because for example, so much post production is done in Australia. you know, um, a lot of the shooting might be done in Canada or pretty much around the world, and the data gets sent to Australia, and people work on it there, and then they send it back out into the world. So it's very vague. I think you know what I think Trump's just gonna be like, wow, I said something very vague and no one can figure it out, so I'm gonna
yeah,
just walk that back, like been walking everything back, including um what was it, like precious metals from China
sure, yeah,
and
yeah.
whatnot. Yeah, I think,
Mm.
and I don't know as for Hollywood ambassadors are doing, but they haven't said anything, so that's that.
Yeah, I mean, look, hopefully we don't have to talk about this again because it ends up being nothing, right? I think in some ways the spirit of wanting to get more films made in the US and we know LA's hurting, right? Like I understand the spirit of it, but obviously
Right.
when you do what he does, you just create a discourse that isn't good for anybody,
Yeah,
right?
there's a
And
need, but tariffs is not the right way. Period.
no,
Period. Any
no,
analyst will tell you
yeah.
that. Yeah.
And again, I don't even know how you implement it. Like he probably still thinks that all movies are like shipped on DVDs and like come across on a
Yeah.
cargo ship and you could like I don't even know how you tariff a film, but
Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense.
John
So,
Voight clearly knows how this is going to be
oh
done.
boy, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
just a mess. But yeah, I mean, a lot of our sound stages, are empty, but we still have the best crew in the world. I've worked with, was it second, one, two, like third or fourth generation, craftspeople. And when I say craftspeople, I'm talking about like the folks in construction, folks, painters, sculptors, molders, all those folks, those like really just hands on artisans, like, you know, they've been around for a couple generations now. And that generational knowledge within those skills is, it's something. But there is like such like a familial pride, I think, that people, yeah, I think the world's forgotten about it. I mean, yeah, I think we still have the best of the world.
Also, the difference between like making a film from top to bottom versus like to your point, like there might be certain regions that they have good set production or they have good post production, but it doesn't mean like you can make a whole film, right?
Right.
And LA is probably still the best place to do it, to your point, or Atlanta or other places. Um,
Yeah.
we'll switch gears in a little bit and start to talk about what's coming in future
Yeah.
episodes for us. Um, One other thing I did this week was as maybe everybody doesn't know yet, but I'm still fairly new in this world. But I did vote for my first awards over this past week, which is the Astor
Hey.
Awards, which is the
Okay.
Hollywood Creative Alliance (HCA). It's
Yeah.
let's call it the stepsister to the Critics' Choice Awards.
Okay.
So newer in the world. But it reminded me that a couple weeks ago, the Oscars announced that, oh, as a requirement to vote
Right.
for the Oscars, you have to watch all the films. And I was like, Um, shouldn't that have been a requirement from the beginning? I was going to
Yeah.
ask you, like, I don't know if now or in the past you've been a member of SAG or the PGA or any guilds like that. Have you done any voting for awards before yourself?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I've been a SAG member for, I think, 20 years now. I mean, there would be the priorities. Like, of course, you want to watch, you'll go through the movies that are the most talked about, and then
Sure.
categories like stunt. There could be one or two stunt nominated movies that I might not get to, but for the most part, thankfully, because we don't have that many categories to look for.
Right.
So I think I always have like one movie that I don't finish or don't get to, but that's about it for the most part. And especially like I really miss like pre-COVID days when there would be screenings like every week and great Q&As and sometimes really good food. Yeah, I really miss those days, and it's yeah, there's that balance of like, we're all shoved into the digital platforms, but you've taken away the live screenings. So the opportunities, I guess, for voters is a little bit like maybe off balance for what it was before.
Yeah, but still no excuse, right? Like I just had I been voting all these years, I would find it like an utmost responsibility to watch the films,
Yeah.
and so I'm glad they've instituted that rule, but maybe it's a little bit of like the dirty laundry for the rest of the world. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe
And
not everybody
yeah.
watches these films, so when you see maybe a winner that you weren't in agreement with, well, sometimes there's a reason why not
Yeah. And
everybody
I
watched the
also
film. Yeah.
double check this with my friend, but I thought that you have your like you're in uh you're in the academy as an actor, so you end up voting for anyone in the actor category, and but all the members do vote for best picture.
Right.
So it's
Right.
not
That's
like you
right.
have to watch all the
Everything.
stuff
Yeah.
nominated for costume design
That's
necessarily.
right.
So
Yes.
it's actually not that much.
It's not that much, right? You didn't
Yeah,
have to
when you
watch
say yeah.
every you didn't have to watch every, best short form documentary or
Right.
everything, right? Like,
Yeah.
so look, if anybody wants to give up their academy seat to someone like me who does watch all the films, I'm here to take it.
Yeah, yeah. Up next.
Earlier, we have Olivia Chang that will come on later this month. So she couldn't join Jillian and Connie today, but that's actually fine because she's got other projects to talk about, including a film that she's recently directed. And then we're scheduling Ronnie Chang, who is going to be up for an Emmy nomination for his work on The Daily Show. But
Yep.
everybody knows Ronnie. He feels like he's in every Asian film these days. So
Yep.
we're very excited to have him.
And
Of course,
actually, I just find him on was it shoot, there's that it's on Netflix show John Mulaney. The John
yeah.
Mulaney in LA. I forgot what the official
Everybody,
title
I
was.
think everybody knows
It,
John, or I can't remember.
Everybody in
Yeah.
LA or something like that. But yeah,
Yes.
Ronnie
Yeah.
was actually a guest with Shannon Doe from SNL. Shannon, what's her face?
On the current cast?
No. OG.
Molly Shannon. Molly
Thank
Shannon?
you, Molly Shannon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I got 50% right. That's good
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, with Molly Shannon. That was a real. John Mulaney has a very interesting curation.
Yeah.
It was Molly
Yeah.
Shannon, Ronnie Chang, and then this doctor who does surgeries. Like, yeah, it's such a
Yeah.
weird formatted show, but Ronnie was hanging in there with the best of them.
Yeah. I think that show's great. And they're like, I think what's kind of fun is they're figuring it out as they go, I think. Right?
Totally.
So, yeah. Yeah. A little bit like us, maybe, Junko.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll get there.
Well, yeah. No, but anyway, we're gonna pass the baton now
Yes.
to Jillian and Connie. So again, thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, share, and then more importantly,
Share.
with films like Lucky Star, they're not in wide distribution. So when it comes out on the 13th, I highly recommend that you watch it, and I promise you that you will enjoy it. And as always, unitedbyrice@gmail.com. Would love your feedback on us, would love your feedback on our guests, and frankly, who you'd like us to talk to,
Yeah,
because
and
we're
I
always
think,
working on
yeah.
scheduling.
And we do have the comments on, at least on Spotify. I do know that.
Yes.
If you want to
Spotify, iHeartRadio, still working. I think we're somewhere in Amazon's
yeah.
world. And then we'll turn on Apple here in a moment. But,
Yes.
baby steps so far.
Yep. It's out there. All right.
All right. Cheers. Nice to see you, Junko.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Hey everyone, welcome to United by Rice. Today we have our filmmakers from Lucky Star, Gillian McKercher and Connie Miu. And with me, did he even say who I am? I'm Junko Goda, but I'm sure my name's on the screen. And with me is Ben Lee.
Yeah, well, good to see you again, Junko, and I'm excited to talk to Gillian and Connie. I met you both in, I think, February at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And I think for either of you or both of you, it was your first time in Santa Barbara, and that was a lovely film festival. But yeah, and so I know at that moment in time, we were talking about Lucky Star, and I think there's been some development since February. So maybe Jillian, you could tell us like what's going on with the film as far as distribution or people getting to see it.
For sure. So we are currently in our Canadian theatrical release right now, which is really great. We're playing across cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, Edmonton, and we're in progress for a few other locations. And we are available for video on demand across North America on May 13th. So any American fans are able to watch the film starting then. And we are trying to get some one-off screenings, but again, that's sort of in progress right now.
Oh, congrats. Yay.
Thank you.
So we'd love to dive into both of your kind of backstories a little bit before we get too much into the film. So, Connie, I know you have in such a short amount of time, you've created a really impressive list of credits. But I'd love to even hear. My understanding is you were a dancer first, or dancing before you got into acting. But tell us how that all came about.
Yes, I grew up as a dancer. I did like the whole, I feel like I was like a studio rat. Like I was there doing ballet, jazz, tap, never leaving the studio kind of thing. And it wasn't until grade 12 that I begged my mom to let me take an acting class. So last year of high school, finally took an acting class, fell in love with it, and was like, I'm going to change the course of my entire career. I just want to be an actor. And then I moved to Toronto. I've just been chasing that dream ever since. Yeah.
Cool. Actually, and just to follow up on that, because I did read in a different article that, that high school class really changed your trajectory. Now, was it the teacher or was it the method that was taught? Like, because that first class could have, it's kind of, it'll make you or break you, if you didn't have a good experience, you would have done something else maybe.
You know what? I think for sure a large part was my teacher. I think also, I'm like, in reflection, I was like, is it because I got cast in the lead? And then I just got such a big, like, shock of dopamine. I've just been chasing that high ever since. I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it was a big part of my teacher. And I think just being able to put the performance aspect in with dialogue and speaking in a way that dance obviously doesn't allow you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt like the right fit. I don't know what it was specifically.
Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Jillian, how about your creative path? What led you to writing, making films?
Honestly, I think it was partly the Oscars. I watched the awards shows with my family when I was a little girl, and we don't have anybody who has a career in the arts in my family, in my broader family. And so that was the first place where I learned that there was a screenwriter or that there was a director. Because when I first watched a film, it just felt like a finished package. And I knew that there were performers, but I knew I always wanted to be a screenwriter. And as I practiced more as like a junior high kid, it's like maybe being a director, I can actually make more. But I actually I was pushed into doing a chemical engineering degree at the University of Calgary. And then I worked in engineering for an oil and gas company, a very large one, for almost 4 years. But that passion inside of me to be a filmmaker never went away. If anything, it got stronger. And eventually I got laid off from my oil and gas job. And I used that as an opportunity to really fully commit into being a filmmaker. But luckily at that time, my now husband, but boyfriend at the time, he was fully immersed. And so through his contacts, his network, I was able to be supported.
Wait, quick question. When you get in the, I just want to compare Canada versus US. When you get terminated, do you get a termination package?
Yes. In this case, they were going through some pretty massive redundancies. So I think it was almost 2 years of layoffs by that point when I had been let go. So yes, I was very fortunate.
Ooh.
Like it was an ideal situation. Like I got it.
Totally.
Yeah, it was incredible.
That's enough to like that's enough to put down on a short film.
Totally. Or to be like, okay, I'm gonna reimagine my entire lifestyle. There's enough of a runway to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good. I'm glad that happened to you in that. Yeah, I'm glad that you got terminated. I'm sure you're happy too.
Me too.
It worked out.
Right, so Lucky Star, maybe probably most people listening haven't seen the trailer yet or seen the film, so perhaps take a minute or two to just describe kind of the story and really how you got into like what inspired the story of Lucky Star.
Oh yeah, and just to sneak in, I did read it was inspired by some family backstory.
100%. Yeah. So, okay, in my family, well, actually, before I get into the family lore, Lucky Star is a family drama about a father who gets scammed and then returns to playing poker to make the lost money back. And he's doing this all in secret from his family. It's set in like a brutal prairie winter. And we just see as the family secrets are revealed, how they get through it, the limits of love, and how they get ultimately how they get through it. And the story was inspired in part by a family legend for my family. So my great grandfather first came to Canada from the Toisan region in like China to work forestry, and then he brought his sons over to work on the railroad. And my great grandfather, when he was here, the rumor is that he lost an entire block of Calgary's Chinatown in a single night of cards. Now, this is unverifiable. This is a long time ago. He's been dead for a long time. But I thought a lot about this. Like, first of all, it's a great story. But secondly, like, what sort of situation was he in? Like, how bad did he feel after that happened? And I love that this story was Chinese, but it was situated in Calgary, where I'm based right now. And I just thought a lot about what sort of person he was. Did his family still love him? And that inspired me to then sort of transpose those ideas into a modern setting for Lucky Star.
Nice.
And I have a kind of an odd question, which is, one of the things I really like about the film is that it is an Asian American cast, but it's not necessarily
Asian Canadian is fine. Asian Canadian.
Yeah, I thought about that. It's like Asian North American. What's the right way to say this? Yeah, we always struggle
Asian
with
heritage. Asian heritage.
We always struggle with the AAPI. Does that include Canada? I think so. So anyway, but what I liked about the film is oftentimes everyone wants to make the Asian trope film, even Asian filmmakers, right? Like this is Crazy Rich Asians. This is Fresh Off the Boat. We're going to talk about the immigrant story, and we're going to have the Tiger Mom and all like those type of trips. And this film really avoids all of that. So, it's an odd question, but do you describe this as an Asian American film or Asian Canadian film, or is it really just a film and the family happens to be Asian?
I think it's both. I think that on one hand, it absolutely is situated within the Asian North American experience, because I've observed these families, like a family like this before. I thought a lot about my experience as a second generation Chinese Canadian, and I spoke a lot with the cast about their experiences. So I do think that it's an accurate snapshot of that second generation experience. But at the same time, I do think that because of that, maybe that one generation removed from the immigration to North America, it does have a more ubiquitous North American flavor, which I was really inspired by other films like even like Saturday Night Fever, which is very much an Italian American film. But then when I think of it, it is like a New York story, right?
Mhm.
Or The Sopranos, which, yes, very Italian American, but it feels very American. Even Better Luck Tomorrow, that film really inspired me, where it felt so, I felt like I knew those boys. Like I was like, I know every single one of them, but all of them are speaking English in their California high school. So I knew that there had been a precedent, and I wanted to honor my roots, but also be part of this sort of new experience in North America.
Connie, how did you become a part of this project? And maybe both of you can talk about your first meeting and what that was like.
This project came my way through an audition, and like sometimes you get a lot of auditions, and I didn't necessarily think too much of the sides when I first got them. But I think I've said this before too. But there was something about when I was doing the scene. It was the scene where I'm in the car with Lucky, and I'm asking him, Lucky's my dad, are you gambling again? And there was something that just came over me while I was doing the audition. I was really surprised by it. I was really taken aback, just how much I connected to the scene as I was doing it in real time. So I sent my tape off. I think we did a callback. And at some point, I just remember Gillian gave me a call. She wanted to just have like a chat. And there was no like official offer on the table yet. But because I had her phone number, I sent her like a desperate text being like, I really want to be a part of this film. Please, please, please. Like, I promise I'll take care of this character for you. And I don't know, maybe Gillian can say if the text did anything, but it felt desperate on my part.
Yeah, I was gonna ask Jillian, does that strategy usually work?
Or are you going to be like, well, you have my cell phone number. There's a reason.
The only example I can think of is like when you're about to date somebody and you're like, oh, do they like me? I like them. Then those things actually work because it reassures you. So Connie wouldn't know this, but I already knew that I wanted to work with Connie from our first callback. So it was COVID, so we did callbacks on Zoom, and I find it can be really hard to get an essence of somebody over Zoom just because there's that extra separation from the TV. But Connie just like really, there was no competition really. I just knew it, but I just wanted to also get a flavor of who she was as a person, which is where the phone call came in. And so after the phone call, I'm like, okay, well, I still want to work with her. And then we had got in touch with our casting director to sort of figure out next steps. But in the meantime, I got that message from Connie, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to work out. This is going to be great. Because when you're making an indie, you need all hands on deck, not just physically, but emotionally. So when I got a text like that, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
Along the lines of that, like, Gillian, when you're captaining your ship, what's your style? Like on set, did you, like your script, once it arrives on set, is it, set in stone? Do did you and Connie have conversations and make tweaks to Grace's dialogue? Like, how do you captain your ship?
Well, I'll give my feedback, but I feel like I'm also curious what Connie would say, because usually when you direct, you are getting feedback. That's kind of like the part about being a director. I think that I'm a very collaborative person. I come very prepared. My preference is to start from the written script, but I do like to hear, after the first take, what the actors have to offer. Often in blocking too, new things will come up. So, maybe what I had in mind isn't working for the setting, or now that we have the information from 10 days of shooting, this scene could be improved based on what we've discovered. And I think that that's where the back and forth between us, like the performers and myself, and sometimes too from the larger crew, like our cinematographer might be like, what I've noticed, we started doing, we have a motif building. Do we want to lean into that or not? So I like to think about all of those things, and I like to have, I like it to be fun and feel like everybody can talk to me. Like, I think the more open and engaged we are, rather than just like being an authoritative leader, which I think there's a space for that too. But on a project like this, which was so intimate, I felt like it was important that everybody felt like they could speak up.
Yeah, I really like how you use the word discovery as a director. But yeah, Connie, what was your experience?
I mean, from my point of view, you're exactly what you said you were, that you want to be. Anyway, sorry, that doesn't really make much sense. But I mean, I love working with Gillian. I think, yes, you are super collaborative and always trying to find the best way to make a scene happen. Or if there's a problem, Gillian doesn't have an ego when she's on set, so she really just wants to hear the best idea from whoever has. I think she really trusts her team. She hires people with the expertise for that department, and she wants to hear from them. So I really love that. And then, just Gillian's so prepared. We had tons of time to be able to play and to be able to discover. I never felt stressed. Gillian certainly I feel like if there's stress, she just absorbs it. I don't know how she does it. She's always so calm and collected.
Wait, Connie, you just said you guys had tons of time to explore. What is this? What kind of independent films situation is this? Is someone being so prepared?
One. Yes, someone so efficient. Yeah. And Gillian was like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. She was like, I've prepared for months ahead of time. And I think it just gave me as an actor just so much comfortability to be able to explore and take risks.
Yeah, when you're that prepared, that means you gain time on set because you've hopefully thought of every nook and cranny.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare in the indie set world, I think. And, an indie film's, is always going to have its challenges. And I know you're, I guess despite your preparations, what were some things that were challenging? Because, there's things that are going to be out of your control, like the weather, or that dog barking, or that airplane. But...
Or the money. Like, was there a point where you're like, oh, we are out of money?
Well, there were definitely some growing pains in the project. So this is the biggest project that I've ever done, and the biggest project that the production company that I'm a part of, Kinosum, which was one of the co-producers of the film. So this was produced by Kinosum Productions and Notable Content. It was the largest project that Kinosum had ever done. And so while the shooting actually was really smooth, there were a lot of growing pains before and after, and not even for anything out crazy, like just learning how to grow up to a larger budget or to larger production needs and larger asks from what we were trying to do with our ambition. So, but I will say that we shot this in 18 days. I was super prepared. I was very focused. But one of the challenges is that when you're shooting this quickly, you can't return back to some of your locations right away. So there was actually a subplot, for example, where we had a bunny that, like, Lucky would see this rabbit. So in Calgary, rabbits are everywhere in the wintertime. And he saw this rabbit and it becomes like a symbol for him as a gambler, like what it means. And it just really, unfortunately, wasn't working. So we cut that. And we ultimately worked around it. But I think if we had a little bit more time, we could have pivoted with a little bit more. It wouldn't have been such an aggressive pivot. There are some other examples where it's like, okay, this isn't working. How do we fix it? Okay, we fixed it, but it could have been a little nicer. Like, we shot the poker house on the first day, that was a really hard first day. I wish, in hindsight, and this is not a call out to my first AD if he was to listen to this, I wish that was later, and I wish we had 2 days, and then we could have gotten more stuff, I think. But you live and you learn.
Yeah, exactly. And adding that line item for a rabbit wrangler would have been.
Oh
I
my
don't know if I would have needed a wrangler, but.
Well, here's a good story. On one of our days, when Lucky goes to the cash counter, and he is getting his money out, or like giving his money, and then he returns and he's like, "Where's my money?" The guy's like, "You've sent it off." The actor didn't show up that day.
Oh.
The actor we cast didn't show up.
Yeah, that's happened to me.
And it's horrible because we only had the location for 1 day, and it's like, well, can insurance cover this? Well, by the time we figure it out, everything's gonna fall apart. So we just had to make a decision that day. I'm like, who on set is ACTRA, which is our actors union, and our locations manager, Dustin Nelson. He's like, I'm an actor. And I'm like, all right, Dustin, you're the guy. He's like, what? I'm like, get rid of that flag. Get rid of your pylon. Like, you're getting processed right now. And he did it. But like, that's an example where you're like, well, on a larger production, this wouldn't be the issue. But on this one.
Yeah, I hear you. I've had to fire someone who was driving to my set one day. And I'm like, you're already late. It's like the time, the money, location. I was like, you gotta make your decisions. I absolutely, yeah, and that's part of captaining the ship.
Well, we should probably talk a little bit about your co-stars, Connie. You talked about the scene that you auditioned for, and really, I think some of the scenes, and I wrote this in my review, that you have are some of the best scenes in the movie, because you have to play the adult, right, in the relationship with Lucky and Terry Chen, who does a wonderful job in that role. I'm interested in just how you approach your role, and the relationship that you have both with Lucky, but also Olivia Chang, who plays your mother. Did you draw from any personal experiences in creating the persona that we see on screen?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I specifically drew from my personal experiences, other than the fact that I was born and raised in Calgary. I am an eldest daughter. I have a good relationship with my father. All of those kind of elements, I think, really played a part in me creating Grace. But other than that, I really, I feel like I just did research on like gambling addictions and like parents with gambling addictions, and kind of just built my character that way. And that's kind of how I like to prep my work anyways, create a backstory and then go on set and kind of just let my instincts take over. So in terms of that, and then other than that, I loved working with Terry. I think he's an amazing actor. Him and I just really clicked. Same with Olivia. And I think there was just a lot of things that we just found naturally through our chemistry. Yeah.
And you said something about like you have a great relationship with your father. I think that actually is important in your character as Grace, right? Because it could have been very easy to just be like, my dad sucks, and he's embarrassing me, in front of my coworker, etc. Right? Like it could have been easy to kind of portray a role where you don't see the affection and the love and support that you still want to provide. So I do think that's an important element that makes Grace's character just that much richer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, hey, before I have a dying question that I really wanted to ask, and I don't know why, I just like remembered it. But Terry's tattoos, those are not real, right? That's not it. Those are not his tattoos, right?
Real.
Wait, those are real? Wait,
Yeah, like Terry's tattoos?
Terry's tattoos. Were
Yeah,
there
those are
any
real.
additions to the tattoos? Okay,
No,
because that was...
we actually covered a few up, if you can believe it.
Oh, because I was like, I have never seen an Asian dad with that many tattoos, unless it's, you're playing like a Yakuza or whatever video game. But I was like, oh, that's a gangsta dad. I'm like, what's going on there? But like, so that was a choice too, because he could have been wearing, he could have covered up more. He could have, like, I read that as just a visual representation of his past. Was that your intention of keeping it in?
Definitely. Well, first of all, Terry called me like a week before we shot and was like, okay, just so you know, I have a lot of tattoos, and I feel like on a production of this size, covering them up in the makeup chair is going to take away valuable time that we need on set. And I said, you're totally right. Send me photos. And I was like, okay, he's totally covered in tattoos. Let's just lean into it. I think it totally works. Like, for the backstory, for how he expresses himself as a character, um, I I think that it also speaks to sort of this transition too with that second generation Asian Canadian thing that I was talking about. But also when I wrote Lucky, I always imagined him growing up and being like Fast and the Furious, Romeo Must Die. Those are like the best films ever. I listen to gangster rap. I do modified vehicles. I might race. And so then the tattoos did make sense in that context. But I just think that they look really great and we leaned into it.
Before Lucky Star, I think a lot of people have seen like Warrior with Olivia, and as mom, like she, there are moments when she gets upset, and I'm like, Terry, Olivia's gonna just like slit your throat, kind of thing. But, but I think the created backstory through the tattoos makes him be able to walk that dangerous line. Like, it's not gonna go into violence or anything, but that tension between the couple, and like Connie as Grace, or as Connie/Grace, having a dad that's that tatted up. Like, what was your view on it, or did it shift a little bit once you got on set and saw him? You're like, oh, Dad's really tatted up.
Funny enough, I think he was, because he was shirtless in like scenes with just Olivia, I think. So I don't think I got the full effect.
Yeah, but
other than like just on the arm and stuff like that, it made me go, oh, my dad's kind of a cool dad, and he must have had a past. That's kind of how I felt about things.
So it's more of a pride, like my dad was badass, kind of a.
Well, maybe not pride, right?
Yeah.
I think it's just there's a past, and I think what I'm picking up from this conversation, and Gillian touched upon it even earlier, is like there's something unique. This couple isn't the typical Asian parent couple you see in films and television, right? And again, I like that a lot. Like they partied, right? You never hear about Asians having met, like partying in, I think Vegas, and that Olivia her character was even attracted to Lucky, right? Because of these elements. It's just so different than, the typical Asian parents that you see. And I do think like you don't get enough probably of the backstory of Terry. So I think the tattoos actually do help kind of fill in a story, at least in our heads, right? It could be a little bit different for each person watching.
Yeah, like they definitely had a like a wild, fiery romance when they first met, like it was, and that was such like a great choice to go with it. I thought it was like you added tattoos, but it was the opposite. And I thought that there's so much storytelling without writing anything that's really, really effective.
Well, I know we're almost out of time. Do each of you maybe want to talk about kind of projects you're working on now or things to come?
Yeah, you go first, Connie.
Okay. I guess for myself, I'm really excited. I'm shooting season 2 of Doc in June. So season 2 will be coming out. I think we have 22 episodes. It's going to be a great season. And then personally, I produced a short film, and we are releasing it sometime this year. We're still trying to figure out when the release date will be, but it's called The Butchers. So keep an eye out for that. I'm very proud of it. And it'll be my short film debut as a producer. I don't know if it's a producerial debut. I don't know what you call it, but it's that.
Congrats. Yay.
Thank you.
Exciting.
And to support Connie, it's a very good film. I've had the fortune of seeing it already. So, yeah, very, very proud.
It sounds terrifying. Am I going to be able to get through it?
It looks, I don't think it's more like it's a dark comedy thriller. It's got more tension than I think it's got scary elements.
Okay. I'll watch it.
I'm looking forward to it. I love it. Love it. Gillian, what's up with you next?
So once we wrap up the release of Lucky Star, I am focusing on some work through the production company I mentioned, Kino-sum. We have a couple of feature films in development, which I'm really hoping that we get funding for or financing in the next calendar year. And we also have a couple films which are done, but hoping for some festival releases. So we have a short film, and then we have a longer doc that my partner worked on. And then as a director, I'm writing my next project. So hoping to come to a cinema near you and not in 5 years. I'm hoping that the turnaround is faster.
Excellent. Well, can't wait to hear more. Well,
Awesome.
remind everybody we'll be able to see, at least in the States, on VOD, it sounds like, starting May 13th, Lucky Star. It's a great film. You two have done wonderful work in this project, and we're rooting for you on this release. And thank you so much for joining us.
And just to wrap things up, we have a final question, because we're called United by Rice. What is your favorite dish? It could be the favorite dish of the moment. It could be a favorite dish of your life. But what is a favorite rice dish? And rice noodles are included in that.
Yeah, rice noodles. Pho. Easy. Done.
Oh, wait.
Easy done.
Choice of, is it like, do you like vegan, chicken pho, beef?
I like rare beef pho with tendon and tripe if I can get if they have it, and then just a lot of lime. Like so much lime. I just like it very sour.
I pretty much do the same. Yeah. I just don't do the tripe, but I do the rare beef and tendon. It's like
nice. Gillian, your favorite rice dish?
I always go back to it. My mom used to do sort of a rice cooker, rice with chicken. So she would like put the marinated chicken in halfway through, and then I would get it when I come home from school. So it's maybe not the most like culinarily advanced rice dish, but it makes me feel good, and it's like that and congee. Those are my favorite. Oh, yeah. Congee with a lot of peanuts and a lot of scallions. That's my favorite.
Ah, nice. But it's that, that like mom made it for you, so it's ready for you to get back home.
Took away from those answers is Canada's probably just colder than it is down in LA. So congee, pho, it's all happening.
I'd eat pho like in 30 degree. Oh, I mean, I guess that's 30 degrees Celsius. I'd eat pho in the summer. Celsius, yeah, doesn't matter. I'm eating pho all the time.
Yeah, I'm there too. Just dumping that lime. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And hopefully I will track y'all down when you're in LA next time.